do human beings belong on this planet? Would it be better off without us? I've asked myself these questions a lot since working in nature. And if you'd asked me at the start of my career, then I might have said no. Maybe we don't. And yet, of course, it would be better off. Look at what we've done. But today, I feel differently. The opposite, in fact. And I want to share that journey with you because I know there will be some people here that carry some fear about the future of our planet. And I'm betting that you would do things differently if you thought they might have an impact, right? Well, that's what I'm interested in. Activating that in you. Giving you the tools and the hope and the inspiration that you need to take action. I'm going to be talking about two very different approaches to climate communications that we often see and how they either paralyze us or ignite us. I'm going to talk about why our brains prefer certain methods over others based on learnings from our ancient ancestors. And I'm going to leave you with a simple recipe so that you can reclaim your own innate sense of belonging. I'm Rebecca Hunt, and I work across the country with the UK's 46 national landscapes, formerly known as the Areas of Outstanding Natural Beauty. You're sat on the edge of one of them right here, the Cornwall National Landscape, a place where the cliffs and the waves are as dramatic as its myths and legends, and where you will find some of the best preserved and most ancient scheduled monuments to our heritage in this country. Now, my job at the National Landscapes Association is all about raising the funds that we need to protect nature, and I love my job. But I really hate that it's needed. It breaks my heart every time someone says to me, "I have faith people like you will fix things." Oh, when did we lose that sense of responsibility as individuals? I think it's this belonging thing. And thanks to my job, I've had a masterclass in how climate communications can either nail it or numb it entirely. Let me give you a couple of examples. Events I went to last year. The first one, what not to do and what happens most often. So, most high-profile environmental conferences go a bit like this. So, picture. Big main stage with big-name speakers and screens and lights and sponsors and sofas and reusable branded bottles, everything you would expect. In the audience are people like me, nature charities, sustainability leads, carbon teams, rewilding groups. And the event begins, and the lights lower, rumbling starts. And I know what happens next. Armageddon. Floor to ceiling, disaster scenes, flooding, wildfires, children running, animals trapped, threats, danger, death. And I'm just frozen. My heart is in my throat and my head feels tense, like my brain is wincing at this totally incomprehensibly massive thing. Often I just walk out, incensed. This is classic climate communications, just showing us and telling us how bad everything is. You think we don't know? Why do you think we're here? We're the good guys trying to fix it. Now, thankfully, I have had the opposite experience too. And I knew this event was going to be different the moment I arrived. It started with a gathering around a fireplace. It was led by a group of Indigenous people that invited us to just catch our breaths after a busy commute and acknowledge the shared space, thank the land. There was no rumbling or disaster scenes, no. Artists joined scientists on the stage. Indigenous people with deep, emotional, personal histories rooted in place, described in vivid detail their deep ancestral connections to nature, these reciprocal relationships passed down the generations. They explained that human beings are the original engineers of ecosystems, the greatest regenerators, nature's most powerful ally. There was data and science and evidence, but it was brought to life through story and poetry and imagination, textured, rhythmic, intoxicating. I was mesmerized. And it was this event specifically that got me thinking about belonging, that we've lost it, and that we need it. Because without it, responsibility just feels like blame and grief and burden. No, after this event, I felt something totally different, that excited, restless energy you get when you discover something new and you have to do something with it. I was fascinated in how that event had captured that in me. Clearly, some innate response had been activated there, and I really wanted to understand what that was. And I boiled it down to 3 key things. They brought the scene, they set the scene with science and story. They brought it to life. I felt the information. They captured my imagination and they made me want to take part. And finally, they gave me agency to do so, empowered responsibility. Most messages we see about the climate do not hit these things. Why are we using techniques that don't work? We know our brains are made for much older ways of living, right? That's why we still feel stress and anxiety if we sense a predator, a threat like a predator, even if it's just a full email inbox. So, I thought to tap into that, we really need to be talking to the old brain, the ancient mind, and to give people in Britain something that they can relate and hold on to. I need to understand what was here before. Who were our ancient ancestors? Can we learn something there? Did they have the kinds of reciprocal relationships with nature that we see in other cultures, in other countries? Where did it go wrong? And could unlocking some of those stories help us reconnect with the same rivers and lakes and mountains today? So, as a history undergraduate with a Master of Science, this felt very neat and full circle. And so excited to dive in and find out how my ancestry could help me equip and inspire others, I got to the library. And man, did I find some buried treasure. So, where to start? I'm going to drop anchor about 2,000 years ago because this is the first time that we have any written record of who was here in Britain, written by non-natives, so pinch of salt. Sources describe a people called the Pratani, Britain, Pratani. And according to them, our natives worshipped not in temples, but at the foot of trees, beside rivers and lakes, and on high ground bathed in the moon and the sun. They marked time by the sky, seasons through ceremony, and identity through stories, myths, and legends. Now, prior to the scientific revolution, knowledge wasn't about discovering new things. It was about interpreting and remembering what was already known. Observations were passed down orally. So information had to be held in story and the land itself. Across Neolithic and Bronze Age Britain, people built what archaeologists refer to as ritual landscapes. Sites like Stonehenge and Avebury weren't just structures, they were calendars, gathering points, burial grounds, whole networks of symbol embedded in the earth. Now, 2 things transformed those ancient relationships: religion and science. Christianity taught us that humanity has dominion over nature, and science revealed just how much there is left to discover and taught us to prize the empirical and the rational over the sacred or folkloric. Now, modern science has achieved extraordinary things, but in separating knowledge from place and memory, we've lost a lot of what makes us human. And our brains are still wired for that story. Psychologists consistently find that narrative is remembered far easier than abstract data because it engages other regions of the brain, sensory and emotional ones. It gives information texture and meaning. Without that, global temperature curves and planetary boundaries are placeless. There's nothing to hold on to. They're the science. But where's the story? Now, the reason that event captured my imagination isn't because I'm a particularly visionary person. No, it turns out that imagination and the ability to experience the imagined is one of the key factors in the rise and the dominance of the Homo sapiens. I'll give you an example of experiencing the imagined. If I offered you a chocolate-covered anchovy, do you need to try that to know? It wouldn't taste very nice. No, your brain is modeling for you what that experience would be like in reality as if it is real. Now, Sapiens author Yuval Noah Harari describes these shared stories that we can experience as imagined realities, these places that we can go that give us roles to play bigger than ourselves. And we have evidence of our ancient ancestors having these imagined realities, something called votive offerings. These are archaeological evidence for our ancestors placing tools and jewelry and swords in bodies of water, purposely placing them there. Now, they would only be doing that if they believed in the animism of nature, that it's alive, that they were in some kind of reciprocal relationship with the living world, that it could receive just as much as we can take from nature. Now, you might think, well, we don't have any of these today. We live in the real world, right? Well, think again. Every company, corporation, civil system, these are all intangible constructs made real by our shared belief in them. But when people are invited back in to participation, something changes. We get community tree nurseries, citizen science projects, modern rituals of care. Now, for most of human history, problem solving was social and local. We would gather to debate and discuss because our lives depended on it. And this event was a lot like that. It was a gathering of diverse people sharing ideas. And I realized that that's quite rare these days. We've got really bad at talking to each other. No, not talking, listening. We don't listen anymore. We argue, we cut each other off, we conflate someone's opinion on one topic with their entire identity. Curiosity is dangerous. Uncertainty looks weak. And if we don't feel we have enough facts about a topic, we avoid it. I certainly do anyway. But that agency that I felt, that doesn't come from being told. It comes from being involved. But to get involved, people need to feel like they belong in the conversation and they can have an impact. So, here it is, my recipe, so that you can rebuild your sense of belonging in your own lives. And let me just say that in facing this crisis head on, it has only helped me cope more with the scale of it, doing my little bit. So don't be afraid. Jump in, be your own medicine. Firstly, pick a place, not the whole planet. One place, a river, coastline, a park. In fact, I'd like you to do it now. In your mind's eye, visualize somewhere that means something to you that you can visit regularly that means something. Next time you're there, just notice. Watch how it changes in the seasons. Learn its rhythms and textures. Secondly, participate in its care. Find a local project, plant something, restore something, count wildlife, pick up litter, fight for something that would be lost without your voice. In the estate that I live, we recently bought the last scrap of green that we had to avoid developers getting their hands on it. And it has brought that place to life in a whole new way. Thirdly, take people there. Share the stories, memories, the things that you're noticing. Learn its folklore. If you're a fan of mermaids, Cornwall will not disappoint. None of this requires you to be an expert or call yourself an activist. You don't have to give anything up. What it does invite you to do is just pause, notice, and give a little of yourself to your world, whatever you can. And if enough of us do that, something subtle but powerful will happen. Responsibility will feel less like a burden carried by a few and more like an instinct shared by many. So, do human beings belong on this planet? We can, if we choose to. Thank you.